Hello everyone. So my plan was to do my weekly make for That's Crafty and try and record how I made it, which was all going very well until my phone just decided to stop recording. But I'm going to make another one just because I've made my mind up that I'm going to record a video. Sometimes I really do hate technology, but yeah, so I'm going to make this one, and I said it was quite a quick card, so hopefully I can get through this fairly quickly. I'll pop that to the side for the moment. So I'm going to be using these two stamp sets. So the Dried Botanicals set 2. I absolutely love this set. I'm actually going to be using it quite a bit actually over the next month or so. I have quite a bit planned for that. And I'm also going to be using Lynn's Scribbled Word stamp set 1. Again, I love this set, particularly this stamp here. It's probably my most used stamp. It's great if you're creating inky backgrounds and things. I'm just going to put them to the side. I must start by apologising. It is actually raining and my craft room is in the conservatory, so you can probably hear the rain hitting the roof. I actually love listening to the sound of it. I find it quite relaxing, but it probably sounds terrible on the camera, so I do apologise. Right, so I'm making a DL card here. I've got some craft card which I actually scored and folded myself, and then I cut a piece of white card to fit. I'm going to keep checking that it's recording. I'm really paranoid now, so if I get a bit distracted, that's probably the reason. I think if it gives up this time, I'm going to completely give up. Right, so I'm using speckled egg here, and I'm just going to ink an acrylic block up, give it a spritz, and splatter it onto some card. Now, if you really wanted to, you could use the smooch technique where you do it on the your mat and spray it. But I want a bit more of a controlled look for this. So I'm just going to keep going and spritzing on the acrylic block. So I do recommend drying your acrylic block in between applications, just because you don't want to mess your ink pad up. What I might do is dry that off and then go in a second time once it's dry. Oops. Now I'm lifting the card up off of my messy mat just because I think it dries so much quicker. I'm not too worried, I'll dry it off properly in just a minute, and then I'm going to go in again. Move that out of the way. Now you can keep adding as much ink as you like until you're happy with it. I'm probably just going to do the 2 coats here. Yeah, I think maybe I'll leave it at that. Now I'm going to dry this off, and then I'm actually going to add some splatters. I do want a sort of quite an inky splattery mess for this background. Now I have quite a pool of water there, so I'm just dabbing some of that excess ink off, otherwise it will take ages to dry. So again, I'm just going to dab a little bit more ink on my acrylic block and just give it a spritz, And then I'm going to go in with a fan brush and just add a few splatters. I'm just tapping this. Makes a bit of a mess. I usually find that I end up with ink all over my glasses when I do this. Right. Now this time you want to make sure that the card is dried properly, because we're now going to do some stamping on there. You know, it needs to be nice and dry, otherwise you'll find that it's a bit patchy. Mind you, for this look it probably doesn't matter too much, but I'm just going to make sure it's nice and dry. I think that's okay. Yeah. Right, I'm just going to bend the card a little bit. Let's just make sure we are still recording, so that's good. Right, now I'm going to grab the little script stamp here and apply that to my block. I said this stamp I just use all the time. I think it's brilliant for creating backgrounds and just filling in little spaces, making sure I've got that the right way up. So this is VersaFine Claire Sand Dune, and then I'm just going to randomly stamp now. Whoop, drop that there, but it doesn't matter too much, you can't really see it. When I'm doing this, I'm sort of working in opposites, but I'm leaving just enough gap to stamp the script again, but in a different colour. I'll probably still stick to the speckled egg colour. I think these colour tones are actually my favourite colours. Sort of the speckled egg and like brownish tones. I think they work so well together. Let's just give that stamp a clean. And then I'm going to go in with the speckled egg. Make sure I've got that stamped the right way. And then I'm just going to go in on those blank areas. Now you might find that some areas don't show up quite as well as others, because if there's quite dark areas and you're stamping on top of it in the same colour tone, you know, it's not going to show up, but that's fine because it is just a background. And I said I'm not too worried about it being perfect for this piece. So there we have all them gaps filled in quite nicely. Just going to clean that and see where I've torn from the previous card there. I'm going to pop that back so I don't lose it. And then I'm just going to give this a bit of a clean. Ooh. Otherwise I end up with ink everywhere. Right, now for the next piece I've used some corrugated card. This piece is probably a little bit shorter than I would have liked, but you know, I'm still going with it. So this was, I might actually maybe use it that way. This was a cardboard box that I've literally torn up. Now it's quite a thin packing box, and all I've done to create this, you know, this textured look is literally pull off. I recommend using like a pokey tool, or in this case I've just grabbed what came to hand. It's just a little ball tool. But all you need to do is pull just a little layer, that top layer off. Now it does take a bit of time and it is quite messy. But yeah, you can just sort of pull it back and it sort of exposes that that lovely corrugated section. Now you can see on this piece I haven't pulled all of it off. I'm just sort of going with you know, those tiny little bits, because it does take ages otherwise picking all those tiny little pieces off, and I'm not too worried about it. Some of it is going to be covered up, but it's great. I love using corrugated, you know, cardboard and things for adding some texture to cards and layers and things. Right, so for the next piece I'm going to grab this paper. This is on the That's Crafty website. Now I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like cotton paper or something, but I will pop the link in the description of the video. I'll pop all the links to all the products that I'm using. So this is like a handmade paper. It is gorgeous. You can get some lovely effects with it. So I'm literally just going to tear it down. I've actually drawn a rough line of where I want, you know, the area that I want. Turn it the other way and tear it that way. There we go. So hopefully I might actually, because the cardboard is actually a little bit shorter than I'd like, I'm going to cut, tear this down a bit shorter as well. I think maybe we'll go with that. I'm not liking how that edge is kind of coming down, so you can just keep tearing it really until you're happy with the you know, with how it's torn. About there. Do you know what, I might go a bit narrower. I'm going to take a little bit more off. Now if you're worried about tearing this really in a straight line, what you can do is sort of use a ruler or something and a wet brush and just go down in a line with a wet brush. Leave it for a minute and then tear it. It'll sort of weaken the fibres. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that piece. So I'm now going to grab my grasses. Now, as I said, I'm going to be using these rather a lot. I have a live actually planned to use with some grasses, and I've just ordered a few more. I'm planning to do a live on like black on black stamping and oxides on black card. I think it's a really effective way, and I think silhouette grasses work really well with that technique. I've got some ink on my stamping block, which I'm just going to get rid of just because the paper here is quite textured. So I'm making sure there's a nice amount of ink on there. So this is the black Versafine Clair, and I think we'll go about there. Now, because this is textured, you want to make sure that you apply a nice amount of pressure on this stamp, and just leave the ink to sort of soak in a little bit. I'd also recommend using a nice juicy ink pad for stamping on this. There are re-inkers available on the website for the Versafine Clairs. Right, there we go. And again with this stamp, I'll move it over because I'm a bit worried that I'm working off camera there. It's actually quite hard to make sure you're staying in the camera zone. I think during a live, I would, you know, you have the image up on the iPad so you can see exactly whether you're in shot or not, but it's quite hard when you're when you haven't got that. So I'm just going to stamp this, I think, about there. Again, I'm applying a fair amount of pressure to that stamp because it is textured. If you do find that areas of the image don't stamp quite well on it, what you could do is just go in with a fine liner pen. I'd recommend the Micron pens, they are really good. Right, now just to bring in some of sort of the brown tones, what I might do is grab this script. This is what I've done I think on the other one, and just stamp the script in that nice sand dune, just to tie in the colours a little bit more. And don't worry too much if it doesn't stamp properly. I'm just going in and, you know, I want it quite lightly stamped. I'm sort of going all over actually with that. Right. I'm then going to grab this little postmark stamp, which I love. It's another sort of great stamp for just filling in little areas. So, and again, I'm not too worried if this is a bit of a rustic stamping, you know, and it's not stamped perfectly. It's actually stamped quite well. Maybe about there. So this one I used was Portobello. So I'm going to pop that to the side. And then, now I love using this stuff. So I'm just going to, just so I don't make a mess, too much mess on the mat. So I'm going to go around the edge with this Pentart wax paste. This is something I use such a lot. I've probably used it in most of my demos, to be fair. I think it's great for just adding a little touch of gold or whatever. I've got a few colours. Well, I've got it in green at the moment, turtle green. That is a lovely colour. And I have just ordered the gold and the red. I don't know if they do them in any other colours. I'll have to have a look. If they do, I'll probably end up getting them too, because they are brilliant. I usually use a brush to apply it. You only need such a small amount. I think this little pot is going to last me for, well, for ages. I mean, I've used that such a lot, and really I barely made a dent in it. Yeah, I tend to use a brush for it. I tend to keep this brush purely for the wax pastes. I use the same brush for all colours. Before you change colours, just wipe off any excess you have. But you can actually use it for, I could actually, I think again I did this on the other one. You could use your finger on this. I don't like the feel of it. So I'm just going to go in with the brush, but you can, it's great to add a bit of gold to textured areas. So on here, it probably does work better with your finger, but I just really don't like the feel under, and I don't really want to get it all under my nails, so I tend to just use the brush. So it's just adding a little bit of gold touch. I don't know if you can really see it on the camera there. I'm just holding it up and tilting it. Hopefully the light sort of catches it just enough for you to see it. Right. Now, I think I went that way, didn't I? Now for this bit, I'm just going to stick half of it down. I'm not going to stick it to the whole project just yet, because, oh, I think that's a bit clogged. I think it is. That's annoying. Right, I'm just going to grab my pin and try and unclog it. I'm very good at leaving lids off of things, so this is the That's Crafty glue. Making sure I'm gluing the right side of it. So as I said, I'm only going to stick half that side down because I want to add some string to this. I'm just going to hold it down because it's the corrugated card is like, you know, quite ribbed and textured. I just want to give it a bit of time just to grab that glue. Rather than getting ink all over it, I'll probably do that. That'd probably be a bit better. Right, I'm hoping that's enough. We're still recording, so that's good. And then what I'm going to do is grab the string, and I'm just going to wrap it round a couple of times. And then snip that end off. I'll put the scissors down somewhere, and they are in my pot. I was a bit too organised for a change. So I'm just going to snip that off. And grab some tape. Just make sure that's roughly where I want it, yep. So I'm going to stick that down in place. I'm going to pop a bit more there because I think on one edge I only had a small amount under that tape. So there we go. And then I'm going to do the bow now before I actually stick it all down. Now, if you're not very confident tying bows, what you could do is use a bow folder. State of my fingers, look, they're all inky. You could use a bow maker to use this to tie it, and then you could actually stick it on with a little bit of glue gun glue. I'm going to go straight in. Now I'm tucking it under these sort of, you know, coming across rather than going through that way. I think they tend to sit a little bit better when you go through that way. So I'm going to tie my knot first and then tie my bow. Right, what I'm actually going to do, I think, before I stick this down, there we go, snip those ends off. I'm just going to clean my fingers a little bit because I think when I go to stick this down, I'm going to end up with inky marks. I can see one there already, which is a bit annoying, but I'm hoping it sort of blends in a little bit. Right. And I'm just going to clean my mat a little bit because I don't want any ink where it shouldn't be. So I'm grabbing the base card now. As I said, this was just craft card that I've folded. And I'm using the That's Crafty glue again just to stick this down. Now, because I've applied some heat to that, the card is a little bit cold. You might want to even stand something heavy on top of it just to give it chance to, you know, flatten nicely. But because I'm recording here, I'm not going to do that. I'm just sort of holding it in place for a minute. Right, and then I'm going to go in and stick this piece down. Now I'm going to pop quite a bit of glue on this, just because where I've got that string, I want to make sure that it's sticking really well to the card base. And there we go. And again, I'm just going to apply quite a bit of pressure to that, just so that glue grabs. I'm going to use my acrylic block just to apply some pressure. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to put the lid on my glue before I lose it. So as I said, it was quite a simple card really to do, but I just thought that while I'm making, I might as well record a quick video on how I made it. I will try and do this, as I said, a little bit more, and hopefully my phone doesn't play up next time either, because this has ended up being the second time I've done it, but it doesn't matter. It just means I've got 2 cards out of it. Right, so that is the finished card. And you can just about see that gold coming through there. But yeah, I do actually need to hold that down a little bit longer, I think, on that handmade, that cotton paper. So yeah, I will pop all the links in the description on the video. All the products are available on the That's Crafty website, except for the corrugated card and the string, but I said you can just use the cardboard box for that, and I'm sure most people have got sort of string laying around. So that's the second card that I done, and that was the first. They're both pretty similar, to be honest. It's just the card is slightly laid out different. That one's a bit wonky, but I think because it's quite rustic, I think you can sort of get away with it. I guess if you were too worried, you could even pop a little sentiment or something down here. I'm just going to leave it as it is though. Anyway, I will be back with a live very soon, and I said I'll probably try and record a few more videos. It won't be every week that I do them, just, you know, now and again. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Thank you. Bye.